I should be opening this stream by asking how excited people are for the Royal Rumble. It's literally tomorrow. I should be opening this stream by asking how excited people are for the return of this person, that person. I should be saying how excited are you to finally see Jade Cargill in action. Unfortunately today, I will not be asking those questions because I have to instead talk about the sorry state of accusation and allegations that have been levied against Vince McMahon. Our headlines today will be leading with the Vince McMahon allegations, TKO's active investigation against him. I will be talking about several claims in that court filing, but I will not be going into detail on anything particularly graphic. And to be clear to everyone currently watching, I will be making clear that these are allegations. At this point in time, nothing has been confirmed and nothing has been proven, and I will hope that we all follow that lead. We will be keeping a very close eye on anyone who is, shall we say, overexcitable when it comes to individuals whose lives will be forever affected by what is happening right now. We'll be talking about the WWE not contacting, or at least being accused of not contacting someone during an active investigation. I'll be speaking about reporting that I've done as regards the speaking out, which happened around NXT UK, which, by the way, not only was I actively investigating when it comes to speaking out accusations of sexual assault, controlling behaviour, etc., against wrestling talent, there was also, shall we say, a backlash that affected me significantly. I'll go into detail on that. We're going to talk about what Vince McMahon's current position is in the company and what his current position is right now in the company. Merch being removed, sponsors being pulled, and talk of a press conference not going ahead after the Royal Rumble. We are going to discuss Brock Lesnar, who was named in the Wall Street Journal report, but not named as a defendant in the court case in question. We're going to discuss John Laurinitis and accusations levied against him. Eric Young, who left the company, openly stating he did not want to work with Vince McMahon. We're going to talk about Triple H, Stephanie, and Nick Khan's involvement with the board and how they attempted to prevent this exact situation from continuing. We're going to talk a little bit about wrestling journalism in general, but also information that was leaked to, shall we say, I believe they called it an entertainment blogger. This has been identified as one Brad Shepard by sources on good old-fashioned Twitter. We're going to talk about the Netflix deal and some of the main reasons that they chose this. There are some cynical options for it. We're going to talk Sports Illustrated and how Justin Barrasso did have to apologise for his reporting due to what he believes to be false information. We're going to talk about Mercedes, money, and the tour that she's actively undertaking as we speak, which is pretty much exactly what she does before a big return, and a little update on MJF as well. So there is standard wrestling news. We just unfortunately will have to start by talking about Vince McMahon. We have 60 people watching, 24 likes. Please remember to hit the thumbs up. Try and get this video out there because there is a lot that I need to share, that I need to put into context, and I do feel this is the ideal place to do it. So the Wall Street Journal went live yesterday with a report that had been embargoed, so it was actually created a long time before it went live, detailing the court filing of certain allegations against Vince McMahon. The allegations included sex trafficking, as well as a number of other quite brutal and disgusting acts. These allegations, to be clear, are at this point allegations. Vince McMahon has previously been investigated and actually left the company in a flurry of accusations of abusing his position of power when it comes to hush money payments to keep quiet affairs in his office and in his overall position. There are certainly overlap in the accusations being made at this point in time. TKO have confirmed that they've already begun an internal investigation against Vince McMahon. This is the second such internal investigation against Vince McMahon. The first investigation claims to have found very little evidence, but did find, and did not mention when confirming its report, $13 million or so in hush money payments that came out of WWE's own funding. When it comes to certain other accusations, for example, that the claimant was not at any point contacted during the case of that investigation, I will say that that does not necessarily ring true with WWE NXT. Now, while NXT has contacted, and I can confirm I reported many years ago, they did contact a number of people making accusations against NXT UK wrestlers during the Speaking Out movement back in, I believe, 2020. This is a report that cost me big. Now, I do want to be clear, particularly when it comes to the idea that we have press conferences coming up and wrestling journalists need to be asking the hard questions. I asked the hard questions. And what happened as an end result of that is that Sportskeeda used the fact that WWE called me a liar. WWE apparently did that. And Sportskeeda used that to suggest to me that I no longer report news for them, leading me to quit, because why would I not do what I'm here to do? They are not the only one. A number of wrestling journalists used that exact moment to basically accuse me of being a fraud. Regulars here will be fully familiar with my work and will know that that simply isn't the case. But those who were there during those days will know that there was one moment when I was doing well in wrestling media, and then suddenly a moment when so many people decided to say I always knew he was a fraud, completely ignoring my history of work. 2 years later, in an interview before Clash at the Castle, Triple H confirmed my reporting about NXT UK shutting down, which was the headline topic of the exact report, which resulted in this exact thing. Now, we've seen accusations in these allegations that the WWE or members thereof intentionally leaked the name of the claimant way ahead of time as a method of controlling her. Controlling behaviour is something that seems to come up a lot in accusations like these, and I can say, while I have not in any way suffered in the same way that anyone in those accusations claims to have suffered, it is very difficult as a journalist to be able to chase these things. That's all I will say as regards that. I have suffered from it, so I will need to be careful going forwards. Vince McMahon's current position in WWE is ambassadorial. In many ways, according to sources close to him, it's actually a job that contains very little actual work, which I find ironic, given that the accusations contain accusations that he created jobs purely as a method of control for people. TKO, it has been suggested, have this exact role in mind for Vince McMahon to maintain a certain level of control over him. I am not able to confirm at this point whether he has been suspended, but with an active investigation ongoing, I would suggest that this is indeed the plan. Vince McMahon is on blackout. That is the instruction that has been given. Merch has been removed that was on sale from the Royal Rumble to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Vince McMahon winning the Royal Rumble, and a video package has been removed which contained Vince McMahon. In fact, when it comes to Vince McMahon just in general, the idea seems to be, don't mention him. WWE wrestlers have been briefed not to discuss anything that is raised with them, but without outwardly refusing to do so. Nia Jax is already the first one to say that. Nick Hausman, who typically doesn't seem to shy away from these sort of topics, has already asked a question of Nia Jax, and while she said pretty much nothing, it's made a lot of headlines because there's a lot of clickbait in saying Nia Jax addresses the rumours. She didn't at any point. There was no news. Vince McMahon, the name alone is on blackout. Plenty more to talk about. I want to start getting into the chat though, so let's do that. Spider Boss, that will be a topic soon. Hello Bailey, hello Sai. Spider Boss says, do you think Undisputed Kingdom need the return of MJF for Takeoff in AEW? Quite possibly. They do need someone to actually be working against. In many ways, it's like having a Suicide Squad and no villains. Zane says, who would you like to see win the men's and women's Royal Rumble? My predictions remain the same. I think it will be Bayley and it will be CM Punk. And honestly, I'd be very happy with all of that. Michael says, hi Tom. Hello Michael. Noob says, hello Mr. Colohue. How are you doing today? I personally am doing well, though I could do without hearing most of what I've been unfortunately reading recently. 85 people watching, 39 likes. One more can get us to 40. Will you be the one for me? Camel says, Tom, what's up and how are you doing? The news is pretty upsetting, but I'm still looking forward to the Rumble nonetheless. There are good reasons, very good reasons, that we should be considering the Royal Rumble still something to look forward to. The primary reason is that this is a very different regime. Vince McMahon has already been very firmly removed from anything involving creative. He did still have some oversight powers, but as I've said, it's mostly ambassadorial. So I do feel that we can separate WWE now from what WWE was. Joey says, according to SRS, Brock may be pulled from the Rumble. Any news on this? Yes, in fact, I was the first to report that, and I will be going into more detail shortly. The dude says, I'm still very much looking forward to the Rumble despite the allegations, whereas Eric is debating not watching tomorrow. Razar says, hello Tom, so bummed with all the awful things I read yesterday. Hard to get excited about the Rumble now. 23 says, will there be more accusations coming? I cannot comment on that. I absolutely cannot comment. Agecar says, hi Tom. Hello Agecar. And yes, Q43, I did indeed. We'll talk a little bit about how I'm using Twitter now later, and I thank you very much, Coot43, for being part of it. David, I will be discussing that in a moment. Josh says, happy day before Rumble, everybody. Excited to support all of the superstars working hard to make the world of wrestling better for everybody. Superstars and a lot of management and a lot of HR at the moment. Thank you very much for becoming a channel member, Courtney. Thank you very kindly for that. I will be reading through as many of your comments as I can, but I will warn people ahead of time. When it comes to what is happening right now with Vince McMahon, these are allegations. And only allegations. We do live in an innocent until proven guilty society. What I will say is previous investigations has turned up, or previous investigations has turned up. LF says, happy Friday, everyone. Let's help Tom out and hit the thumbs up. Thank you kindly, LF. We have just hit 50 likes, which is fantastic. Joey, I will get on Brock in just a moment. Sai says, all please remember the word allegedly in anything you're posting here. Yes, please do. It's very important that we're not just blanket attacking people in here for things which have not been proven one way or the other. You are certainly entitled to your opinion, and if it's phrased as an opinion, that will be fine. However, I do have to, in many ways, protect my channel. So I do just want to remind people of that. I do need to protect the channel a little bit. H-Card, there will be news on Netflix. There will be news on Rumble entrance. Me too, Ohio, me too. 23 Fresh, we will be talking about Brock in a moment. Evening, Dan. Ed says, remember, everyone is talking about Vince. Use the words allegations of or allegedly, please. Mark says, hey, Tom, hope you've had a good week. It's been up and down, shall we say. Razar will be on that in a moment. H-Card says, any news about The Rock on board on TKO? Yes, a little bit soon. Soon on that one, okay? Ohio says, if all the things in the lawsuit are true and Triple H knew about it, could it affect the new TV deal? If this and this happens, which we don't know, could it maybe do this? You're asking me to make an assumption based on two guesses. Jaden says, Tom, did you see Sasha's WWE merch has been uploaded to the WWE Euro shop and her old theme is back on Spotify? Yes, I did. Temple says, I don't really want to talk about the allegations. I had a friend who is no longer here due to similar circumstances. And I think that's fair. I do want to kind of get through them relatively quickly in the format of spoiler warning, where I also read through the chat. But it's one of those where it is difficult to ignore, unfortunately. Marcel says, hi Tom and chat. How are you all? I will watch it back. Thank you, Marcel. Hector says, evening Tom. I unfortunately read through the whole Wall Street Journal article and I sadly can't unsee what I read. But on a more positive note, that Cody CM Punk promo is fantastic and has me excited for a potential feud. Spider-Boss says, I really like how Mercedes Money trolls fans on social media. We will be discussing that a little later as well. Nicholas, you missed the word allegations. You missed the word allegations, and I need you to be aware of that. Bailey says, a person under an NDA would not be allowed to speak to a private investigation. The only reason this even was made public is if Vince stopped paying her settlement. Allegedly, Vince stopped paying her settlement. We have not seen or at any point been provided evidence that that happened. Thank you, Bailey. I actually didn't read the next part where you clearly state that's an opinion. I appreciate that. We do have to be very aware of what we're saying here. I don't want to be called in and accused of libel because I can't afford that. It would destroy me and my family for generations. Thank you very much for subscribing on the YouTube side. John Gallagher, I appreciate you. This is a show that's quite open. If you're not a subscriber, you can still join the chat. I am slightly behind when it comes to the chat at the moment, please be aware. So I will be catching up as quickly as I can. There is a lot happening at once So please forgive me for taking a little time to do so. 23 says, do you think WWE wrestlers will request a release? Some already have, but it was a while ago. There are people who are claiming to have already known about quite a bit of this, and that's why they got out. Clyde says, push-ups and you know the rest. Hope the weekend has started off well, Tom, and all in chat. Not quite. Sylvic says, hello, Tom. Hope you're doing well. I want to know, are the reports of Sonya Deville and Caitlyn returning in Rumble true? I can say that Sonya Deville is going to be at the Royal Rumble. Caitlyn, I cannot confirm. It's all based on gear that she seems to be making for the Royal Rumble, according to her Instagram. Birdman says, why should Punk win the Rumble? Because I believe Triple H has booked him to do so. Kang says, I'm going to the Rumble. Hope you enjoy it, mate. Chris says, I'm thinking Gunter wins versus Seth, Punk and Cody get eliminated by Drew, setting up Cody and Punk, and Night 1 Mania, and Rock versus Roman Night 2. Chris, what you've subscribed to there is exactly what Sports Illustrated said would happen, and then apologised for saying would happen. More on that later. 23 says, why did McMahon sell the company in the first place? Money, primarily. Hey, Courtney. Eric says, any news on if Brock returns tomorrow? That's up soon. Khalid says, can't wait to see the returns and surprises we see tomorrow. I have uploaded on Wednesday a video detailing all of the surprises that I expect. Brock Lesnar's name was one of them. That may have changed. Dylan says, hi Tom, I don't want to bring it up, so I'll just say this. If it's true, I want everybody involved to either go to jail or suffer the consequences. Fair? Absolutely fair. Having read some of this, if it is true, absolutely there needs to be consequences. We will be heading in that direction, Bird. We just need to get there. Razar says, do you have any Sasha news? A lot of reports about her coming out today at once. Interesting timing too. Yes, there will be news on Mercedes money a little later. Relatively minor. 23 says, what's your favourite Royal Rumble ever? The one that ended with a full match between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. KJ, welcome, mate. Jaden says, do you think that it means anything that AI, those things that AI of a sudden back is a chat? All those things are all of a sudden back. Is the chance of her coming back bigger? No. Zane says, will you have to pay extra for premium live events on Netflix? I'm not sure as of yet. They are still discussing their pay scales. Sai, thank you kindly, says, I realise humour is a coping mechanism, but any jokes about these allegations will be deleted on site. That's all. For those of you who aren't aware, Sai, Ed, Lauren, Megan are my moderation team. They are here for a reason. Okay? They are helping me. So please don't take it personally if what you put is deleted, but please recognise why it's been deleted and why you maybe shouldn't be saying it. 23 says, Val Venus at the Rumble? No. Jaden says, will there be a Rumble watch-along? Yes, there will. John says, allegations aside, not going to let the actions of one man ruin what should be an epic Rumble this year. Drew for the win. I appreciate that outlook there, John. The Rumble itself, as I said, is being helmed by a completely different team, and I can understand why people are still intending to be excited for it. I cannot blame anyone for still being excited, and honestly, I do think it is the right distraction from all of this. Temple says, where do you get your sources from, or is it just from your eyes as when you see things unfold? Sources primarily, essentially, in around 2014, I started going to local indie wrestling shows. They were booking a number of big-name wrestlers or people who've worked in the top of the industry previously. I started talking to some of those. They connected me with other people, etc., etc., etc. And that's how it all started. Meet wrestlers. It's worth it. KJ says, what's up, Tom? I see everyone making it known that Okada and Money are AEW bound. Ray says, will you be going to any wrestling events in 2024? Yes, I will, but likely they won't be the big ones. Koo says, any Cody Rhodes news? Only as regards what Sports Illustrated previously reported and then redacted. Bird says, what's up with Cody? I appreciate how you run your channel. It's probably the best I've seen yet. I appreciate that, Birdman. I do appreciate that. I try and make the channel as informative and transparent as possible. There are times when I've been wrong and I've said, got it wrong. That does happen. Thankfully, as regulars here will know and will tell you, my record's pretty damn good. We have 109 people here watching, 54 likes. One more gets us to 55. So if you're able to, please be my one. Dan says, is it true TKO can't remove Vince McMahon? If you don't know, don't worry, mate. Don't put yourself in trouble. I don't know the exact details of Vince McMahon's contract. Anyone talking about this seems to be speculating based on the possibility that there is not a clause that allows them to remove him for gross misconduct. Joey says, do you have any news on AJ Lee appearing at the Rumble? Only my opinion that she will be doing so. Lightly Milked Grayson says, good afternoon, Tom. Good afternoon, Lightly Milked Grayson. What a name. Jaden says, why is her merch back up? Because she's trending and the WWE are very good at making money. They still own Sasha Banks as a name, after all. Barry says, I'm very much of the opinion it's not my place to discuss allegations involving others, which I really know no facts about. I appreciate you for that, Barry. Spider-Boss says, The Rock is really on the head of the table now he's part of the TKO group. Michael says, quite rightly, Sasha Naomi merch was never taken down from the Euro shop. They own the names, as I say. Nicholas says, Rita Chatterton claimed in 1986 that Vince McMahon tried to... I'm not going to use the word, begins with an R. And it's a type of sexual assault. And I appreciate how you phrase that. You pointed out at this point it is a claim. At no point to my knowledge was anything proven, but it was settled outside of court. Now, as regards the concept of it being swept under the rug, which you go further into, there is no evidence that that happened. It was an open court case. So that is something that happened there. As regards Ashley Mazzaro, again, still allegations at this point. Nothing to my knowledge has been proven there. I understand that this is going to be something that's going to make a lot of people have a very visceral reaction, and that is very human. I can't blame anyone for that. We're not going to be banning people unless they really start to take the piss. But this is not the forum to let that out, unfortunately. We will focus, as always, on factual information and try and make it clear what the situation is. WrestleVotes have reported that Slim Jim have pulled themselves as a sponsor from the Royal Rumble. They are not the only sponsor that has been discussing this as a possibility. Nick Khan at the moment is essentially trying to put out fires and prevent anyone else from pulling out. This is also one of the reasons that WWE Raw is moving to Netflix. There will be a lot more control over advertising on that platform, and Netflix have given assurances that if advertisers start to pull from Netflix, it's a very different situation than just pulling from a specific WWE event. So that really does change things, at least in that regard. A Slim Jim advertisement and commercial has already been recorded, and the WWE aren't necessarily scrambling to replace it. It will just be something that comes on during one of those peacock breaks that we tended to see. TKO are confident they can control the narrative going forwards, essentially calming investors and making sure everyone knows that in their eyes they've got this under control. But you likely have already seen from journalists on site, the Royal Rumble post-show press conference is currently in doubt. Triple H, to my knowledge from what I'm being told, wants the press conference to go ahead. He's confident he can not just field questions, but also handle any journalists attempting to ask particularly difficult questions. However, I'm told that TKO themselves are unwilling to open themselves up to too much scrutiny. As regards Brock Lesnar, Brock Lesnar was named in the Wall Street Journal report. Brock Lesnar is not a defendant in this court case and is not required to essentially defend himself from particular scrutiny, though he may be called as a witness in this particular area. As regards Brock Lesnar right now, he seems like he is not under attack in the same way, as it were. Accusations aren't against him. That said, he may still choose to walk away from the company. To my knowledge, a new contract has not yet been signed, and I know people who've read it may see it as an opportunity to make a joke. Please don't. The accusations made are disgusting. As he's not actually a defendant, he is technically free and clear to continue, and this does mean that TKO technically does not have grounds to suspend him. However, to my knowledge, yes, they are looking at removing him from the Royal Rumble. The intention was that he would make an appearance at this year's Royal Rumble to set up a Wrestlemania match with Gunther. I've been reporting that one for months. It's funny now that we're hearing so many people stating that as regards Brock Lesnar, suddenly he wasn't supposed to be appearing at the Royal Rumble after all. For Vince McMahon's part, a spokesperson did make it clear that Vince McMahon refutes these claims and intends to fight in every possible manner. I'm going to read something out that Brandon Thurston posted, which comes from former independent WWE board member Jeff Speed via the New York Times. He states, I remain confident in our investigation, which included outreach to the claimant and engagement with her lawyer. Mr. Speed said in an email sent Thursday by Simpson, Thatcher and Bartlett LLP, the law firm hired to represent the committee. This, of course, is a committee of the WWE board members who investigated Vince McMahon. Mr. Speed, who left the WWE board in 2023, when Vince McMahon returned, added that he recognised the horrific nature of the allegations in the lawsuit, but that he was not at liberty to comment on what was and was not learned during our investigation. Because it was an internal investigation, those that were directly involved in investigating Vince McMahon essentially have been sworn to secrecy, which means whether they found something or didn't, we are likely to never know the details. We are likely to never know the details of that investigation. Still a bit more to be getting through, but I will get to it. I don't want to leave the chat behind. We currently have 110 viewers, 65 likes. Be my one, guys. Be my one. What have we got? Thank you, Bird. Appreciate that. Says, bro, legit. His info's spot on. HCAR says, any news on Adam Copeland's deal with AEW? It's a full-time deal. It was signed quite a while ago, and he's pretty happy overall with his contribution. Wants to say, Tom, good old SRS The Enemy reached out to WWE and they told him, well, we're not interested in contract tampering, so they doubt she's returning. Does it confirm your report? One, about that one, this is a quote from someone in WWE. This is not a quote from WWE itself at the whole thing, and I've seen it quoted and misquoted in a number of different areas. We will talk about Mercedes shortly. What I will say is, as regards contract tampering, she would have needed to sign a contract for that to be the case. More on that shortly. Joey says, would Ari Emanuel be able to force Vince to resign? Nobody can force anyone to resign. Riyadh says, Tom, I really want Gunther to win the Royal Rumble. Is that a possibility still on the table? There are a number of possibilities, and they don't usually finalise it until the day, especially if everything is up in the air as it is right now. I will say my opinion that CM Punk will win maintains. Razar says, Stephanie leaving WWE makes so much more sense now as more things come to light. Honestly, respect her more for it. The WWE has missed her. Trekkipedia says, is it true Slim Jim bailed out? Yes, it is. Though Nick Khan is trying to convince them to return by convincing them that the current regime is going to do things differently. Jaden says, will Mercedes make any money off the merch that they put up? Yes, she will. She will get. She has a limited license for any merch involved. She will receive a regular check from the WWE, even while working with different companies. 23 says, Hogan or Austin at the Rumble? Triple H and Hogan are not friends, and Hulk Hogan is unlikely to be there. Steve Austin also unlikely, but less unlikely. Temple says, you're one of my favourite creators. Favourite Royal Rumble match that isn't the Rumble match? Difficult to say. I will probably say, and this is going to be awkward given the accusations in play, Brock Lesnar versus John Cena versus Seth Rollins. But I appreciate you for that, Temple. Robin Dave says, WWE might pull a double main win at Rumble with Cody and Punk like from 2005. Anything is possible. 2005, wasn't that accidental? I believe it was. Michael says, there's a guy on Twitter named Brandon McMullen. I've sent you screenshots on Twitter of some things he said, and I've never seen him get anything wrong on AEW. He says Mercedes signed 3 weeks ago, and her debut date has been finalised post-Revolution. MJF signed months ago. Okada is expected to go to AEW. I'll discuss all of that shortly. Spider-Boss says, it was nice how Mercedes Money answered to fans on her Instagram subscription. Basically said, don't believe anything you read about me, which is not unfair. Spider-Boss says, answering questions on Twitter, Andrew Zarian said Mercedes Money deal with AEW is done deal. As I say, I have news on Mercedes. It is coming soon. Spider-Boss says, the only thing I love the most of the Royal Rumble is the surprise returns and debuts. I also like the wrestling, personally. 23 says, what are the chances of Dwayne Johnson winning the Rumble? Slim to none. As I've reported previously and as Dave Meltzer recently confirmed, Dwayne Johnson has never signed on for a wrestling match with the WWE since his last match against John Cena. There has been no moment when he signed on for a wrestling match. Admittedly, he did have a very brief wrestling match against Eric Rowan at Wrestlemania, but he wasn't actually signed on to do that until the day itself. And technically, I question whether he was insured. Ray says, who do you think is the worst men's and women's Rumble winner? I think the combination of Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar was not a winner for the WWE. Trekkipedia says, agree with you, Tom. Sorry, guys, there's a lot of chat happening at the minute. Agree with you, Tom. Let's all be careful and look at facts we know about. Yo, Daniel. Joey says, do you have any additional news on the Netflix deal? A little bit, yes. I'll be getting to that shortly. Riyadh says, Tom, I'm sure you must be gutted Klopp is leaving Liverpool. Heartbroken, mate. Heartbroken. Temple says, will the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix still go ahead due to circumstances? Yes, there is no correlation between those two things. No connection at all between the two. CS says, hey, I'm happy for the amount of viewers you have, brother. Thank you, CS. I'm also very happy with it. Thank you very much, everyone who's joined us so far today, and everyone who's hit like as well. 64 right now. Be the one. Josh says, Kofi making a rope bridge out of Slim Jims to get back into the ring is not so likely anymore. No, it is not. Blue says, Tom, if you read the report, while not a defendant, Brock is accused of actions that are a part of the lawsuit. Yes, he is. But, as I mentioned, he is not a defendant in the lawsuit. So while he is accused of actions, those actions are not being scrutinised as potentially illegal. Essentially. KJ says, if you don't mind, Tom, House of Wrestling, that guy, but he asked Nia about the current situation. Could I post her answer? It was very professional and she didn't even acknowledge it. You can if you like. I have already mentioned it. That was part of our top piece of news. Joey says, do you know if any new opponents have been discussed for Gunter? They have, but I don't know who as of yet. It's very, very recent. Wikipedia says, everyone keep the jokes to yourselves, please, neither the time nor the place. Camo says, to your knowledge, do you expect the Gunter versus Brock match to be cancelled? I'm not sure. I do think it's possible that if they try and say to Brock, don't come to the Royal Rumble, he turns up anyway or just refuses to ever work for the company again. It's Brock Lesnar. He has a lot of sway. Temple says, is there any good news when it comes to pro wrestling for 2024? There is always something bad happening, nothing good. There is plenty of good news, and I will be getting to that after all the bad news. No, Will, I've not heard about The Rock's reaction. The dude says, from everything I've read, it seems like Stephanie was beloved backstage. Hopefully they get Vince far away and she comes back in some capacity. I really hope so too. She genuinely was beloved backstage. And I do think that she's been heavily, heavily missed. Riyadh says, Tom, do you have any news on Tama Tonga? I do not. Khalid says, my favourite Royal Rumble is when Undertaker won in 2007. Ed says, 1994 was a planned two-person winning Rumble. That, of course, being Lex Luger and Bret Hart. Trekopedia's favourite is 92. Zane also agrees as 92. Big fans of AEW says, can WWE add another match for the Rumble? Maybe Io Sky defending her championship. They can. I kind of feel they should. However, as I've said a number of times, Triple H has a very clear system when it comes to premium live events. He always likes to give a half-hour block to each match. The Royal Rumble needs more than half an hour. If it's a 3-hour pay-per-view and the Royal Rumble takes up about 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think that's probably the exact right amount, personally. Spider-Boss says, I think what ruined Ronda's Rumble 2022 win was fans wanted a certain boss to win the Women's Rumble. I mean, that was the plan. Michael says, this time around, Vince can't force his way back in if he's pushed out. I wouldn't put it past him. Michael says, I'd love for Mercedes to go live halfway through the Women's Rumble watching a movie with her dog Ryu. I would love that, primarily because a lot of people still wouldn't believe it. Spider-Boss says, my favourite Royal Rumble is 2008 Royal Rumble with Cena's return. Eric says, do you think Liv Morgan returns tomorrow? Yes, I do. Dan says, I wonder if Vince will retire again, but this time for good on Twitter. I bet TKO hope so. Trekipedia says, Tom, where will Raw air once the USA deal ends in October this year? That at this point in time hasn't actually been finalised. Essentially, they're still not sure. They're going to find a temporary home, but they're going to have to keep working at it. Nick Khan is on that at the moment. They had hoped the USA Network would be happy to continue. USA Network are not happy to do so. Thank you, Jack. No worries, KJ. Robin Dave says, does this mean Brock is safe? I am not going to speculate as regards safety in any way, shape or form. I just wanted to make clear that he is not a defendant in this case. And only the Wall Street Journal has mentioned him by name. John says, talking bad news, keep seeing rumours about Wade Barrett. Any truth to these rumours? It'd get a pop. I've not heard anything about it myself, but I'd be excited about it. Razar says, I think the Rumble card is too short currently. Could have added the women's tag title match to it to make the titles feel a little more important. And 23 says, could you see VKM buying another wrestling promotion? No. If he fully leaves the WWE and decides to start something else, it would be the XFL again. It would be the XFL again. Couple more things before we start to get to more positive news. John Laurinitis has now been named in another accusation. The amount of allegations which directly involve him are pretty staggering. He was, of course, fired by the WWE quite a while ago, not necessarily in the wake of the accusations against Vince McMahon. His star started to fall pretty rapidly because of a backstage issue between he, Mercedes Moné, and Trinity Fatu. Because of this, John Laurinitis' place as head of talent relations became very, very tenuous. Mercedes Moné was actually quite close with Vince McMahon, and she was eager to see John Laurinitis punished. When Vince McMahon was unwilling to listen, this is of course one of the reasons that Mercedes Moné and Trinity stepped away from the company. I can also confirm that FTR were indeed very, very close to re-signing with the WWE, but eventually walked away the second they heard about Vince McMahon returning to the company. I think it's telling certain groupings of people who react in certain ways to Vince McMahon. Also, a slight victory lap from Eric Young, and I cannot blame him, who asked for his release because of Vince McMahon and has made no attempt to hide it. He was absolutely right, it seems, to make that decision, as it was his decision and he's entitled to it. There is no evidence as regards these allegations that they are allegations that Triple H, Stephanie McMahon or Nick Khan were aware of. There are people who've been trying to put 2 and 2 together and coming up with 6,794. There is no suggestion that Triple H or Stephanie McMahon were aware of the situation, but I also do want to point out Stephanie, Triple H and Nick Khan all voted to not allow Vince McMahon to return. They were not able to succeed in this, but they all made their intentions clear, and Triple H has been unwilling to work with Vince McMahon since, according to sources in and around that team. Triple H and Stephanie and Nick Khan indeed were leading a very, very different WWE. While I think Stephanie McMahon is horrendously missed, I do hopefully expect to see her back. And this is just speculation on my part. I want to see her back. This is wishful thinking on my part. I want to see her back. And I think the biggest risk to, for example, AJ Lee's return at the Royal Rumble is that things have not changed as she wanted them to. AJ Lee has always been very open in some of the unhappy situations that she has with people in WWE. For example, Jerry Lawler, who we've not seen too much of since Triple H took over. Spider-Boss says, I really feel bad for the Bella twins' mum after Laurinitis appeared again on another Vince allegation. I feel bad for everyone involved in those allegations, particularly because, Jesus fucking Christ. Ghost says, hello Tom and chat, hope everyone is doing alright. I feel that the most important thing to remember here is that true or not, if this entire situation needs to be handled with care by all parties. It's not the time for company wars, pointing fingers or making jokes. This woman's life was negatively affected in some way and should be treated as a human being. Very well said, Ghost, and I 100% appreciate you for saying so. Michael says, I felt really bad for Stephanie. I thought she would do a great job as CEO. I thought she actively did do so, and it's a real shame that she's not been able to continue in that role. Drekipedia says, could you see Netflix picking up Raw for the 3-month period, or maybe Peacock? The WWE, particularly Nick Khan, are actively trying to work that out as we speak. Chris says, I still think Bayley wins the Royal Rumble tomorrow night. Temple says, Stephanie McMahon was absolutely fantastic, a great booker when it comes to the women. And in fact, she's one of the people who pushed the hardest for the Women's Royal Rumble, which we'll now be seeing more of once again tomorrow. Big fans of AEW says, I don't understand why they fired Kevin Patrick. WWE can't find Kevin Patrick something to do. I don't have much on this one, but from what I've heard, the first time that Kevin Patrick found out that he was going to be removed from commentary was on Twitter. Can't imagine he'd have been too happy about that. KJ says, it's my opinion, but I don't think Brock's alleged actions are as bad as some are hyping it was. He didn't do anything near Vince and Laurinitis, but more could come out. But from what we know, from what the reports are, they are different. But as I say, I will not be going into any of the detail because in every way, disgusting. Temple says, I read about Tama Tonga debuting in the Rumble similar to how AJ Styles debuted. Wrestle Purist is my source. Thank you for sourcing that, Temple Plays. I appreciate that. We'll see how that plays out. Selvig says, do these allegations make Mercedes not sign with WWE? To my knowledge, Mercedes Money is not signing with the WWE for her own reasons. They do not involve Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon has been very effectively removed from the company, and I believe the recent negotiation which he did enter into with the WWE was under the clear provision that Vince McMahon would have absolutely nothing to do with it. Big Fan says, everybody needs to let Stephanie McMahon join his life with her family. Join his life? I'm confused. We've reached a new peak for viewers, 121 there, 72 likes. 3 more will get us to 75. If you can, please do consider doing so. Next up. Oh, actually, before that, thank you very much, Bubba Fett, for subscribing on the YouTube side. This channel continues to grow, and I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who continues to support it. Whether you're watching only these live streams, these spoiler warning shows, whether you're watching the Fun Fact Thursdays, whether you're just here for the shorts, I'm very appreciative of all of you diving in and helping out. I'll also say at this point, just before I get on to the leaking of information for personal gain, just before we get onto that, I will mention that I'm slightly changing how I'm doing things on Twitter at the moment. For those not already aware, I'm currently putting together a list and a thread that I suspect will be about 100 pieces long of major news that I've reported that has been proven true. For example, when I and only I reported that Wrestlemania would take place in an empty arena behind closed doors in 2020. So I've actually subscribed to Twitter. I am one of those annoying people who pay for Twitter, but if I'm using it purely for advertising, it does make sense to do so, and I've seen an immediate massive uptick in the amount of views on my content since. In the last few days, for example, I gained an extra 300 views on YouTube because of Twitter, and that's 300 views that I wouldn't have had, and that's actually income that I wouldn't have had. So I want to say a massive thank you to all of you who've engaged on Twitter, who've given me replies, given me likes, given me retweets and quotes. I'm seeing so many of you do so, and I massively appreciate all of you for that. When we get to the point that I'm starting to put this thread out, all of that engagement will have stacked. So I'm not going to be one of those engagement farm accounts. I don't want to do that, but I'm there to advertise something and there to inform. That's the whole point. That's what I'm going to be doing. Thank you to everyone who's supported so far. One of the accusations levied against Vince McMahon and the WWE in the court filing was that Vince McMahon or a member of the WWE intentionally leaked the name of the claimant to a media blogger. The media blogger in question was not named and doesn't seem to be a defendant at this point in time, but they may be called in to give evidence. There has been an identification process on Twitter where they, Jessie Davin, I believe is how her name is pronounced, identified a media blogger who did share, many moons ago, the name of the claimant. That person was Brad Shepard, who has deleted his Twitter account, though he did briefly work with and for Zero News under a ghostwriter. I have at no point been approached with anything like this. I want to be very transparent here. As many of you will know, I'm not exactly the darling of the wrestling industry. Thank you very much, One True Goose. You are the one, you are the only, and no other goose will ever do. Thank you for following on Twitch. I've never been approached as regards anything like this, and I would immediately blow it the hell up if that happened. As I say, my name is banned on places such as Squared Circle because of a report that I made which was reporting accurately on speaking out and how it was affecting NXT UK. I asked the questions. Not only the WWE, but wrestling journalists punished me for it. I'm wondering, honestly, how many of them were instructed to do so by WWE, but that is just speculation on my part. It's all very convenient that it all happened at once, is all I'll say. I don't feel for Brad Shepard. Brad Shepard has gone on the attack on me several times. If it is indeed him in this filing, he will likely be called in to give evidence, and hopefully, he agrees to do so. because if he doesn't, this may become a very serious criminal matter. Spiderball says, WWE changed the commentary team, but Corey Graves is still there. I haven't forgotten how Corey used to throw hatred to the role models. Kayfabe. Bailey says, some people are not happy with Kevin Egan as SmackDown host, but he's actually very good as a football announcer. Yeah, that makes sense. There is some correlation, and the WWE do like their sports presenters. I don't see Mauro coming back per se, but I wouldn't hate it. Courtney, thank you kindly for following on the Twitch side. Courtney Louise 1234, you know how to hopscotch, and I appreciate you for it. Temple says, watching the Attitude Era and the storylines we got, I now know how Vince's head works. Bubba says, something to keep in mind with these allegations is consent under duress is not consent. A fair point, Bubba, and I appreciate how you've described it there, particularly pointing out it is allegations of this. But, absolutely right, consent under duress is not consent. There is a reason, and I say this to anyone who, probably all of you know this, but just in case someone's watching this who doesn't 100% understand, there is a reason that we use the words enthusiastic consent. Being whittled down and eventually saying, yeah, sure, whatever, is not consent. Yes, I want to do this. That's enthusiastic consent. Spiderboss says, correct me if I'm wrong, but Laurinitis was head of talent relations when AJ Lee retired. I believe he was, yes. Michael says, WWE has been an entertainment product for its existence. I don't see how they can change it to sports-centric. They're not intending to change it, they're intending to frame it. So the camera work, for example, the commentary, for example, they're also looking to get into sports media. They don't give a about wrestling journalists. They want sports journalists. That's why they've been leaking things to Justin Barraza of Sports Illustrated. More on that in a moment. Razar says, people used to clown Stephanie with the she invented women's wrestling jokes, but looking back now, she was a big advocate and helped the division move forward and deserves her credit for helping. I also think, as we're crediting Stephanie, rightly so, we need to credit AJ Lee for being brave enough to put the head above the parapet and say, Stephanie, you should be doing more. I feel like that worked. I genuinely do feel like that worked. So it's definitely worth mentioning. Ghost says, quite rightly, no always means no. It does not mean maybe, and it definitely doesn't mean yes. Consent should always be enthusiastic. It's one of those things. It's not something I ever really expected to be talking about during spoiler warning, but I certainly will always back that. I have always believed in that. There is the only consent is enthusiastic consent. Saying yes under duress is not consent. And we all need to know this. And we all need to pass this down to everyone who follows. The world needs this change so that these allegations, if they're true, never happen again. Michael says, even then, sports journalists find wrestling as a joke because it's scripted. It's not accepted at all by sports journalists, which is absolutely fair and one of the key issues that the WWE have trying to get into the mainstream media. KJ says, we've seen Jungle Boy in New Japan. Did AEW fire him? I've seen no one say anything about that. To my knowledge, he has not been fired. The suspension seems like it's over and it looks like a loan rather than anything else. Wrestler Fan says, will we see any legends returning tomorrow at the Royal Rumble? Yes, we will. Zane says, what was your view on Kevin Patrick leaving WWE? I didn't mind him. I thought he was alright. I thought Michael Cole was treated exactly like Kevin Egan has been treated when he first started. Because when he was on SmackDown with Jerry the King Lawler, Jim Ross was on Raw, and Michael Cole got a hell of a lot of, oh, he's just budget Jim Ross. He's just a worse version. He got a lot of that, and look at him now. People don't get given a chance. Thank you, Temple. Appreciate that. Have yourself a great time. Dan, welcome. Evening to you. Someone I definitely will want to talk to about this at some point, just for your overall experience, but I don't know how to start that conversation, so to be honest, I might veer away from it to try and keep you from being drawn too deeply into it, but I've enjoyed is the wrong word. I've respected your outlook on this and respected your input on this on social media. Ed says they want SI, Sports Illustrated, and ESPN, and not Fightful and Wrestling Observer. Absolutely true. Josh says, I enthusiastically consent to give a thumbs up for spoiler warning. You know, I'll take the like, but I'm not wholly behind the joke there. 23 Fresh, I've not heard either of those names. Razar says, Slim Jim released a statement about WWE. I think this is the first time something like this has happened since the Vince allegations came to light last year. Sponsors are a little extra jumpy since then, and I can't blame them. Bubba says, wrestling had such great highs these past few months, just feel sick to my stomach now. Blue says, Colin Taz were great back in the day. I do feel that's really when he earned his stripes, as it were. Robin Day says, imagine the pop if AJ Lee returns tomorrow. Drekipedia says, shocked they didn't switch Kevin Patrick to backstage interviews or pre-show. He was good. As I say, from what I've heard, the first he heard about his removal from commentary was on social media. I would suggest that maybe he didn't take that lying down. I certainly wouldn't. King Azza says, hey Tom, I see Drew and Jade winning in my opinion. About 4 months ago, I suggested that Jade Cargill would be debuting in the Royal Rumble, and that would be the first time we saw her wrestle. Funny how that's become the commonly accepted term now. Ed, thank you very much. Ed is bringing the full quotes in. I'll wait until everything's in from the Slim Jim statement before I read it out. Bailey says, if Michael Cole ever left WWE, would be in some trouble. He's been very loyal given the sheer workload he has. Spider-Boss says, it's so bad the women's division in WWE just get less and less TV time. Women's matches don't last more than 7 to 9 minutes. Very true. Right now is not the shining example of women's wrestling. That said, some of the promos, very good. Ed has given us the full quote from the statement from Slim Jim. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. Slim Jim values integrity and respect in all of our partnerships. Given the recent disturbing allegations against Vince McMahon, at this time we've decided to pause our promotional activities with this decision. I'd imagine that's supposed to be WWE. Help me out there. This decision reflects our commitment to our brand values and responsibility to our community. We will continue to monitor the situation and base our future engagements on our values and what's best for our brand. And then Ed has given a direct source to John Pollock. Thank you kindly for that. Jason says, I remember when Michael Cole was a backstage interviewer. Hello, Tom and chat, by the way. Greetings and well wishes. Do you remember when The Rock would hide his face and call him a hermaphrodite? I'm glad the world's different. Wrestler Fan says, do you think WWE will remove Brock from the Royal Rumble and Mania? I do believe they will be attempting to do so. However, certain situations mean that technically they may not have enough grounds to do so. It will depend a lot on Brock himself. Razar says, some people are blaming the fans for Kevin Patrick being fired. Were WWE aware the fans didn't like him on commentary and did that play a role? Yes, and maybe. Ray says, Pat McAfee teases returning to WWE commentary, source Ringside News. Blue says, Tom, if you were to guess, do you think we see Vince involved at all with WWE TKO in public again? There's far too many moving parts here. A lot of it does depend on what actually happens from this. King Azza says, Tom, I see The Rock costing Roman the championship and doing Cody versus Randy for the championship at WrestleMania. I don't. Chris says, I see Jade Cargill making her WWE debut tomorrow night, having a good showing, but not winning. And Late Night with Jay says, hey, Tom, hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well as well, mate. Billy says, that said, most WWE TV matches don't last more than 7-9 minutes. Anyway. Ghost says, this is a reminder that if you do not feel comfortable watching WWE right now, and thank you very much for bringing this to us, Ghost, you do not have to do so. If you've been affected by the Vince situation, please take time out for you and your mental health. You will always come first. That's a very well put thing to say. There goes. I appreciate that. And honestly, I'm appreciative of being able to say stuff like that and read that out on my channels. This is a difficult time. And if it's too much for you, I respect you for stepping away. The Saudi Arabia deal, I've drawn a line at. I believe this is a very new regime. But if Vince McMahon was still in charge, this channel would shut down. I'm unwilling to support any endeavour which funds Vince McMahon. But if nothing happens from this, I can't necessarily say that I'm being completely honest with myself there. Matthew says, do you think Velveteen Dream will return after the apology and interview? No, I do not. WWE, particularly Triple H, have absolutely no interest in bringing back Velveteen Dream. He's currently making an effort to rebuild and rebrand himself. Triple H is aware of it and is simply uninterested in engaging with it. Blue says, Tom, I saw that Rock promo on YouTube about a year ago. I'd forgotten what he said. Just reminded me of some of what felt like thinly veiled homophobia during the feud with Cena. The Rock used to say a lot of things which absolutely would not fly today. It was a different time, admittedly, and The Rock seems today to be a very different person. Spider-Boss says it was nice to see some tension in Judgment Day after seeing Rhea and Priest arguing on Raw. And Camo says, I still see Punk versus Seth and Roman versus Cody at Mania happening, and I assume you're expecting the same. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yes, indeed, I am. Bit more news to get to. The Netflix deal has been finalised. The WWE are thrilled with the deal that they got. Nick Khan has been working on this one in relative secrecy for almost a year now, and he's extremely happy with what he's been able to create. Yes, Vince McMahon has been involved in making this happen. However, to my knowledge, Netflix are looking to sweep that under the carpet relatively soon. The deal does involve a huge international component, which will be a big help. The WWE's only interest is getting their product to as many different people as possible. They could not care less about the subscription model. They could not care less about the ratings week in, week out. They want to be in every home, which is why they have done the Peacock deal, which is exactly why they've done the Netflix deal. Michael says, was this deal with Netflix the amount they were expecting, as in no roster cuts? To my knowledge, yes, it is. The amount of money in question should not generate more cuts, and should save, essentially, anyone who's recently returned to the WWE. There will be some restructuring, particularly around the editing team, the social media team, and the live events team. With some moving over to Netflix to facilitate that transition, there may still be a few people who, unfortunately, do lose their jobs because of it. I just want to be clear on that one. When it comes to on-air talent, I'm assured that it is extremely unlikely at this point that anyone on air will lose their job because of the Netflix deal. The amount of money in question is actually higher than they were initially expecting, and they are not intending budget cuts at this point in time. Bailey says Netflix would be a one-stop channel for all WWE programming in most countries outside the US and Saudi Arabia. Yes, it will. And with this in mind, the WWE have actually made a little extra money via Netflix internationally, which is where the extra money comes in that they weren't necessarily expecting. Spider-Boss says, I didn't get the point of sending Jey Uso to Raw. He hasn't done much after Survivor Series. He was going to do even less on SmackDown. Sports Illustrated earlier in the week reported that Gunther would be winning the Royal Rumble to face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, with CM Punk facing Cody Rhodes. They did not comment on plans for Roman Reigns. Many fans assumed this meant that The Rock versus Roman Reigns would indeed be the plan. Sports Illustrated's Justin Barrazo, who did report that, has since apologised for this report. He believes either a source who has long since been reliable intentionally fed him false information, or the source in question was being fed false information backstage in WWE. I don't think either of these is impossible. In fact, I'm more than willing to give Justin Barrazo the benefit of the doubt, because as you guys know, I respect anyone who puts their hand up and says, sorry, I got it wrong. You do not see that. You really don't. Politicians will always say that they didn't get it wrong. They'll never apologise. They'll just say, people don't want to keep harping on about this. We need to move on and focus on the future. Why are you living in the past? You don't see it. Wrestling journalists, you don't see it. When they are wrong, they tend to just attack anyone who tells them so. You don't see it. I didn't think CM Punk would return to Survivor Series. I was wrong. These things do happen. Okay? These things do happen. So I have enormous respect for Justin Barrazo for that apology, especially when you consider that misinformation is something that happens in the WWE, and let's be blunt, I don't think anyone really believed it anyway. Mercedes Moné has returned to wrestling training in preparation for her impending return. Now, Mercedes actually has a pretty recurring habit when it comes to this. That being, when she's about to return to wrestling, she likes to add a couple more moves to her arsenal, which is why you'll see her training in a number of different and new wrestling schools. We are actively seeing that as we speak. The reason being is that Mercedes Moné has indeed signed a deal with AEW. I can confirm the reporting from Andrew Zarian, for example, that she has signed a deal. This deal, however, and I've mentioned this before, does not actually begin until she first wrestles for the company. Her first appearance in AEW, her first wrestling match, to my knowledge, will be when the contract kicks in. That is the same deal that all AEW contracts have. What this means is, while the contract is in place and the WWE certainly can't tamper with that as a concept, it's not actually as in stone as you'd think. That said, to my knowledge, her intention is to go to AEW. As I said earlier on this month, she wanted it all sealed and sorted before the end of 2023. 2024 has come. They are just waiting for the right time and for her to say that she is ready to get started. Bailey says, has Dave Meltzer or Sean Ross Sapp ever attracted a scoop? Can't recall one. I can't personally recall any from Sean Ross Sapp. Dave Meltzer did withdraw a report about Seth Rollins and, I quote, the rah-rah speech. That said, Seth Rollins did kind of have to force him into it. Spider-Boss says, nice women's segment on AEW Dynamite between Toni Storm and Deonna. Half of the screen on black and white. Final piece of news is as regards MJF. There are many people speculating that he has signed a new deal with AEW. To my knowledge, an extension was put in place many moons ago during the reporting that he basically just jumped on a plane and left. Or had a plane ready to go. Which was debunked since, but it's one of those that, as I say, never been retracted. MJF is on holiday at the moment. Any rumours that he's signed with AEW or signed with WWE in these last couple of days, completely false. He hasn't been available to do so. He is on holiday, as I said. I do believe, but this is speculation on my part, that he has signed a new deal with AEW. I've not been able to confirm that. That's just what I personally believe. And I have absolute confidence he's on holiday. He has not signed a deal with WWE. He will not be appearing at the Royal Rumble. Remember who has said that he will. Okay? Because either we need to give them credit or we need to do the opposite of that. Few comments still left to read. Salvik says, is it Booker T trying to get Jacob Fatu? Nope. Ku43 says, for anybody wondering about the possibilities of the Royal Rumble press conference being cancelled, the YouTube link for the live stream is now up. As I mentioned earlier, TKO are against the idea of that press conference going ahead, but Triple H, to my knowledge, is eager to continue. He wants to stand up there and be counted. He wants to field the questions. He is confident that he'll be able to get through it in a way that does actually satisfy the questions that will come. Questions will be asked. And honestly, so they should. So thank you for that, Ku43, appreciate it. Joey says, do you see Raw going back to 2 hours once they move to Netflix? Personally, no. They like their extra money. Also, with the roster in place, they kind of need the full 5 hours. Drekipedia says, Rock's next movie is a live-action Moana. He was saying to be released next year, so if he competes at Mania, I would be thinking he'll be 41 next year. Apologies, guys. My throat is going. I just need to quickly use my throat spray. To recover again. Razar says, I was really going to cancel Netflix, then they announced Raw going there. Will the show still be 3 hours? Again, not sure, but I don't see a reason for them to change. King Azza, my favourite Rumble was 2007 when The Undertaker won. Blue says, it's nice to hear on-air talent might be safe for a bit, though it's always terrible to hear anyone losing their job, especially with so much money involved. Joey says, I think we'll still see some minor cuts for talent that aren't being used, but I don't see mass budget cuts again. If there are cuts, it is literally just for people who aren't being used, and I get that. Zane says, were you happy to see William Regal return to NXT TV? I was. I'm glad he was involved. Dylan says, Tom, I'm happy it's on Netflix because it provides me with everything WWE related. I don't have to pay extra money for the likes of Peacock, every other streaming service that they would have. As a UK viewer, I am thrilled with Netflix as a deal. Absolutely thrilled of it. Eric says, are you streaming tonight? I'm streaming now. I will not be streaming... can I just say great work, Cy and Ed? You've absolutely nailed it tonight. I will not be streaming SmackDown tonight. I will be streaming the Royal Rumble. That will be my next watch party. Joey said, I saw someone on SRS's Twitter replies suggest he should stop giving trolls attention, and he lost his on the account. Yeah, there's a reason he goes after the trolls. It spreads the word. Yes, Zane, he is. Dylan says, anyone who has an issue with Netflix being the new home of WWE, Netflix paid $5 billion to get everything WWE, meaning they want this deal, they want to go into the live streaming business. Yes, they do. Joey says, did you see the report from a Japanese Twitter account reporting Okada may go to NXT? Was there any truth to that? To my knowledge, no. Rizal says, I'm really sad Mercedes is going to AEW. The Rumble return would have been so perfect. Juan says, Sasha Banks vs. Paige Part 2 coming soon. Right. So we have a Vanessa Loca who is determined that Sasha Banks will return to the WWE tomorrow. Remember the name Vanessa Loca, because I will. Jaden, I've said so many times, I don't sit here and say impossibility. I literally just said as regards the contract. It's not as ironclad as you think it is. Zayn, I've never seen her wrestle. KJ says Triple H won't run from the questions and then attack someone unrelated. That's completely irrelevant to the conversation, and you know it. Blue says Nick Khan has confirmed in an interview the show will still be 3 hours. He's also said it will still be on Raw, at least for now. Trekkie says, no worries, Tom, it happens. I just got over allergies. Vanessa, you won't do that, and you know it. You know you won't do that. You know you're lying there. Josh says, even before this, I've been impressed with the way Triple H has talked about Vince, i.e. emphasising his crucial contribution without putting the man on a pedestal. And KingAz says, hey Tom, do you think the Bloodline will screw Cody out of the Rumble? No idea. And that's exciting. Spider-Ball says, Peter Insider never admitted when they got wrong the news of Carlito appearing on SmackDown on MSG. Also Melina, if you recall. Michael says, have you heard of the account Pro Wrestling Scoops? I followed them and they were teasing about dropping some news on Discord, so I jumped on his server out of curiosity. He seemed to think MJF to WWE, but they brought up Boozer, and someone said in the Discord that Boozer has admitted to lying. Yeah, so I'm going to lay this out because I know how this goes. There is no way of proving that Pro Wrestling Scoops is not Zero News under a different name. There is no... You raised Tony Khan's name, KJ, and there was absolutely no reason to mention it. None whatsoever. You know that. So, in regards to Michael's question, there is no way to prove that Pro Wrestling Scoops is not Zero News. There is no way to prove that Pro Wrestling Scoops is not BWE. Also, you have to consider, and this is a tactic that is constant. How many times have people said, oh, Tom Colohue, he is admitted to lying? They haven't provided any evidence of it because there is no evidence of it, because it hasn't happened. But they will keep saying it until people believe it. It's Trump tactics. Now, I don't know when it comes to Boozer if they've admitted to lying. I know they've been wrong on a number of occasions. I know that. We all know that. But it does seem at the moment there is a real tactic happening of Twitter accounts. They pay for it. They constantly leak things, but they don't actually leak things. They just tease leaking things constantly. No face, no name, private Discord server. Everyone but them is lying. I don't feel there's any way to prove that Pro Wrestling Scoops isn't Brad Shepard. Ghost says, when do you believe Hall of Fame announcements will be made? I think they'll be closer to WrestleMania. Triple H likes to do it a bit later to keep it quiet. Bailey says, one more question. With an international audience, do they consider changing the event time? At times, yes. There is a possibility that SmackDown goes an hour earlier, for example. But at this point in time, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Yes, exactly, KJ. You raised Tony Khan's name when there was no reason to do so. You can build someone up without putting someone else down. And Dylan says, in regards to the Netflix deal, I'm just wondering when they will put everything on Netflix in Ireland. I'm from Ireland. I know it's everywhere outside the US, but I'm just generally curious. We'll have to wait and see. After all, Ireland deal does not come under the same UK deal, and I don't believe that the WWE put too much focus into it. That said, if Becky Lynch kicks off, I'm sure they will. We have 101 viewers, 81 likes. If you can, please remember to hit that thumbs up. It is 10 minutes past 11 here in the UK. We've been live for 70 minutes. We will be live tomorrow for the Royal Rumble from the start of the pre-show through the entirety of the event, and I hope to see as many of you as possible there. These were some very difficult things to report, and I appreciate how many of you have stuck with me here. We've had 2 new members, we've had a number of new subscribers, plenty of likes, plenty of chat. Thank you to all of you for your questions and for your time. As usual at this point, I will wrap up and say, I've been Tom Colohue, you have been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.